Hey there, everyone. My name is John Eberhard. I run a Google Ads agency and have spent more than $20 million in Google Ads that I've managed for all my clients. I've worked with almost 150 brands. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to take control of your Google Ads, as this is the most important thing, best thing you can do for your Google Ads account. So, what I'm first going to break it into is I'm going to kind of break this down into two phases. Okay, whether you're, if you're phase two already, this phase one's only going to be a second, and it's also very important that you listen because there's a chance that you didn't do this the right way. And you might be thinking, oh, damn, okay, John's right. I need to make sure I do this. Okay. So even if you think you're, a month ahead in your Google Ads process, or, if you're running Google Ads yourself or you're an agency owner running Google Ads for clients, if you think you're a little bit ahead of this, you're probably not. So just give this full thing a watch here. Okay. So phase one is when you have literally just clicked live, you clicked enable on the campaign, you go, cool. Now what? Okay. That's phase one. Phase two is, let's say you're about 2 to 4 weeks, maybe 3 to 4 weeks in, and you're like, hey, we've seen some results. We're, maybe cost per acquisition, cost per conversion is not, right away where you want it, of course, which is what I would expect. But you've at least spent money, you're getting conversions, you're seeing results, but obviously it's not where you want it, etc. Okay, so let's break those two down, and then let's go from there. I don't know where my pen went. Here it is. So phase one, okay, you just have everything live. You literally just click start. You're like, hey, what's next? Wow, I'm so into Google Ads. I typed phrase one because I was talking about phrase match keywords. So let's just think that this says phase one, okay? So you have your account live. Okay, what's the most important thing? Okay, so phase one is going to be, let's just say month one, okay? And then let's just go ahead and go down to phase two. We're not going to say phrase, we're going to say phase. Pardon my handwriting here. Phase two is when you're about, a full month in. Okay. So this is right away. This is about 30 days in. Okay. What's the real difference here? The number one thing that you need to be focusing on right when you make your Google Ads live is watching those search terms. You need to be watching those every single day because depending on what type of keywords you used, if you used, I'm sure you used a combination, but just keep this in mind, right? You have exact, you have phrase, and you have broad match keywords. Okay. So depending on the mixture, the percentage of each that you use, or just depending on what keywords match types you use in general, you are going to see a different level of variance in traffic. Okay, what does that mean? If you're an asphalt paving company and you have keywords around asphalt paving, residential asphalt paving, etc., you're probably going to get a lot of searches that are, hey, how much does a residential asphalt driveway cost? How long does asphalt last? How does asphalt do in cold weather? Okay, you're going to get a lot of those when you use broad. You can typically see, or actually not typically, you can 100% see more impressions with broad match keywords, but you typically see that lower relevancy, especially when you're just starting. Okay, so phase one, the absolute most important thing you can be doing for the first 2 to 4 weeks of the Google Ads account is making sure that the traffic is dialed in. Every 72 hours at most. I wouldn't let it go any further than that, especially depending on how much you're spending. Make sure that you are making negative keywords. Also, make sure that you're using the umbrella strategy in making broad negative keywords, which we'll talk about in a second. So instead of just catching the clicks once you spent them, you can prevent them in the future so they don't happen again. And just dial in this traffic and mess with these match types as best as you can. And then once you start seeing results and you're a month in, right, from all this messing around, that's when the real game starts and you can take control and actually make performance changes in your Google Ads account. So again, you've got these searches from broad. Cost per click is probably a little bit cheaper. You're showing up for a ton of different searches, but you're like, hey, a lot of people are looking up like financing options. How does asphalt do in the cold? How much does it cost? Should I get one? Like, we don't want those. We want people looking for residential asphalt paving companies, contractors near me, etc. Right? So what you do here is you can either, mix and match. You can make some, if you're like, hey, John, this is uncontrollable. No matter what we do, there are so many searches that we cannot keep up with it. We've been doing this for 3 weeks. We're getting so many searches. It's not sustainable, right? We have to check it every single day. So what you can do is you can either switch some of your keywords around to phrase and exact to take control of the searches a little bit. You have to understand that you probably will get taxed a little bit and be paying a little bit more cost per click because you're going for typically those higher intent searches. So broad match is a little bit cheaper, but again, one thing you can do here if you want to stick with broad, or let's just even say when you're using phrase and exact, like you're still getting like a $5-7 cost per click, and you're okay with that. One thing you can do to combat really most of this, and I'm going to draw an umbrella here. So pardon, oh my gosh, pardon. Ooh, that is not an umbrella. That is an arrow. Let's try that again. Jeez. Okay, let's just move on from this. This is an umbrella. So what you can do is you can make umbrella negative keywords. Okay, so let's just say that how much does an asphalt driveway cost? Okay, so instead of just making that a broad, or I'm sorry, instead of making that an exact match negative keyword, so that only happened, it only catches it that one time, right? Then if someone looks up something also related to how much does it cost, but it's not that same exact search term, you're gonna pay for the click again, then you're gonna have to catch it afterwards. Okay. But the only thing that you want to, or just in general, you want to make sure that you're only getting fooled once. Okay. So if you pay for a keyword that was irrelevant, don't ever pay for it again. Okay. So make the word cost, make that a broad negative. And this is what comes down to the umbrella right here, right? So this won't ever happen again. I see a lot of people for all kinds of local home service businesses. People look up, so here are some ones to take note right now. If you don't have these as broad match negatives, go ahead and do it. I always do cost. I do free. I'm not going to write all these. This can take me a while. I do cost. I do free. I do how can I do DIY. I do Home Depot. I do reviews. I do testimonials. I do free. I do cheap. Those are the ones that I just immediately, or I do hiring. And also how can I is a good one too. I make those broad match negatives right off the bat, so we don't, we're automatically nipping that in the butt. We don't want any window shoppers. We don't want any researchers. They can do research on their own, but we don't want them to trigger our ads. Okay, so long story short, month one, you need to be controlling your searches. If your search terms are irrelevant, then you need to change them. If you're getting too much crappy searches and you can't keep up with it, then you need to switch to a more phrase and exact match approach and take the gas off of broad. That's what Google wants you to do. You're going to get a crazy amount of impressions because your ads are showing up for every single thing under the sun. I've seen clients' accounts that are using broad match keywords and there are addresses coming up like 8215 North, Hazel Way. And I'm like, how does this even happen? I don't even know. So sometimes it can be really hard, to keep up with, and it's a constant effort. But after some time, you're going to have affordable traffic and it's going to be shaped the way you want, but it can take a lot of time. So if you're doing it on your own, it can be a lot, but just make sure, right? There's really only two real ways to go about it. Of course, you can do a mixture of these two, or a mixture of any of these three. Typically, it's going to be between exact and broad, or exact and phrase. Those are typically the routes people go. So just keep this in mind. But month one is all about controlling the traffic. Okay. By the time month two rolls around and you've ran Google Ads now for an entire 30 days, I want to see all the searches being exactly what you want. Okay. No more BS. You spent the whole month mixing these around, as well as making these negative keywords. Okay. So phase two, where a lot of you guys are in, you're like, hey, John, yes, I know I've monitored the traffic. If you haven't, and if you think you have, I hope this helped, because this is number one. Okay. Number two, you've been running Google Ads for a month. You're like, okay, we've got some conversions. They're a little expensive, maybe around like $200 to $400, or depending on your industry, you could have only maybe gotten like 2 conversions that whole month. And you're like, dude, this is just way too expensive. Okay. So here's what's happening, right? I'm going to go through all the scenarios that happen in a Google Ads account and how to, flip the table. Okay. How do you fix this? Okay. So number one right now, let's say month one is done. You've been watching the search terms. You've been messing with all this. You've now ran it and you go, okay, my cost per acquisition is just way too expensive. Okay. So let's talk about CPL. CPL, cost per lead, is not really a metric in Google Ads. That's like more of a Facebook thing. We go by cost per conversion here. Okay. So if I do cost to conversion, and we're going to just attack all of these big things that happen in the account, right? Because depending on the data that you're seeing in your Google Ads account, there is a different way to go about what is happening in your account and how to fix it. Okay. So number one, okay, if your cost per conversion, again, this is really for local home service businesses. And I have so many clients in this space. They're kind of all like relatively in this ballpark, right? So for roofing and solar, I'm going to keep you guys out of this because that's just a whole different beast. It's just extremely competitive and expensive. But let's say you're an asphalt paver, your HVAC, your landscaping, whatever. If your leads are $500 plus, then I'm almost certain that this is a traffic problem and you need to look harder. Okay. And yes, you might be thinking that, hey, no, John, all these search terms, all the keywords there are super, super, high intent, but that doesn't mean that they're going to convert still, right? So you can look, and I'm sure you could probably shed 30% of your keywords and, just be showing the ones that are actually converting. So you're going to have a ton of, these high relevant keywords, but only some of them are going to be converting. So trim the fat, get rid of the ones that aren't converting for now, just to get you in a better place. Okay. So if cost per conversion is above $500, there is a gap here. There's a communication problem. There's a keyword problem. There is an issue. Okay. And typically when you see this, you're probably also going to see a very low click-through rate. Okay. what that means is, again, your traffic is just irrelevant. You're showing it to too many, people that are searching for other stuff, a lot of DIYers, a lot of researchers, or even just irrelevant guys. And then once they click on your ads, they realize that you weren't what they were looking for, then they click out. Okay. So cost per conversion above $500, I'm 9,000,000% certain it's a problem here still, unless your website is just absolute crap, which is the next thing. Okay. So we're going to talk about that here in a moment. Okay. But first thing is cost per conversion. Okay. Double check your traffic. All right. And then coming into that, right, the whole thing here is cost per conversion is just going to be high, right? The whole point of you watching this video is to get better results with Google Ads. Phase two, again, no one's cost per conversion is going to be dialed in yet because you just got the traffic where it needs to be. But this is where you can start to take control, okay? So that's why I started with cost per conversion. The next thing to look for, okay? So these are big metrics. We're going to go for big metrics here, okay? So cost per conversion being high is always going to, that's going to be the problem that we're tackling the whole time is cost per conversion, okay? The number one goal of Google Ads is to bring this cost per conversion down. Obviously, on the back end, in first-party data, make sure that your leads are actually good. Don't just be getting them. Don't just be getting cheap, crappy leads, but we want affordable, good leads. Okay, obviously, but that's not something that you can really control on the Google Ads dashboard itself. So cost per conversion is always the number one thing we're going for. So the next thing to look at is let's take a look at your conversion rate here. Okay, it's going to say conversion rate is what it's going to say in Google Ads, and this is a metric you can look at. Okay, if your conversion rate is below, okay, and there's a lot of ranges here, okay? There are a lot of ranges, okay? And industry standard for a search campaign for a local home service business, I think is like 6 to 8%. Excuse me. That kind of slipped, sorry. I have some clients that are 20%, 25%. I have some that are 5% that are all still doing good. It really depends on what your cost per click is, how much that average order value is that you get from doing a job, the lifetime value, etc. So every business is going to be different, okay? But the biggest thing to look at is your conversion rate. So if your conversion rate is less than 5% on your search campaign, then again, I hate to say it, this is a traffic problem and overall a communication problem, okay? And when I say communication problem, this is going to include what people are looking up. This is going to include keywords. This is going to, also be what's on your website. Okay, it's all looking up. If someone looks up words, if someone types in words, someone sees your words, put on your website, sees words, I'm going to say those are all communication problems. Okay, you're not giving people what they want, whether that's being poorly demonstrated through the keywords, the overall just like the keywords being triggered from what people are searching. But if that gap is too big, which is what I mentioned here, then that's going to throw people off. You're going to get people clicking. They're looking for like a cost calculator, and they're like, oh, well, this is not what I wanted. Click out. That hurts this number, okay? Any kind of thing like that. So if your if your conversion rate is below 5%, you have a communication problem and you need to fix it. Does your landing page suck? Plug it into tools. Does it take forever to load? Are there no call to actions? When I am on the page, is there a form right there or a number I can click and call right away? Or do I have to go, okay, do I go to click book now? And then it brings up this page and I have to type in what I want, where I live, all this stuff. And I just go, forget it. Is there too much friction? Okay, what's the problem here? Because most of the time at a basic level, unless you're like a med spa and you have like a third-party booking platform where people choose their medication, they choose their physician, you have to put in your credit card, you're going to lose so many people. That's what's going to hurt your conversion rate, okay? But for a local service business, it's almost always going to be the communication. So you need to be checking these because ideally you want to be 8% or above. That is going to make sure you're in a fantastic spot, okay? So if your conversion rate is really low and your traffic is super dialed and you're like, Johnny, trust me, okay? We are a asphalt paving business. Every single search, right from top to bottom in terms of, most searches, most clicks to least is residential asphalt paving company near me, asphalt paving company near me, like contractors for asphalt driveways. All of those, if you're like, hey, man, we swear this is exactly what it is, then there is a major disconnect from the journey that someone is experiencing from when they click on your ads to when they get onto your website. Again, is there nowhere for people to call? Does your website take 30 seconds to load and they just go, forget it? Is on mobile, is the UI bad? Does the form not work? The amount of times I've gotten on the phone with a potential client on a call and I've looked through the stuff and I go, hey, do you mind if I test this form? And they go, yeah. And I will click it and it literally will say error. And they're like, oh, never seen that. And it's like, you've been in business for 6 years and you didn't know your form doesn't work. That's a problem, right? No shame here, but that's just part of it. So you need to make sure there's no disconnect. Make sure your page is fast. Is it eligible? Are people above the fold right when they open it? Can someone take action? How many call to actions are there? Are you advertising for residential asphalt paving, and are you bringing people to a homepage, or are you bringing people to a contact page with no photos, no information, no headlines, no hero image, no call to actions, etc.? There is a disconnect here. Okay, so that's a couple ways that this can be affected. Okay, conversion rate is going to be from poor traffic or a poor landing page experience, aka bad delivery, no congruency between what you're advertising for and what they click on. Right. For instance, on a better scale, if I was like, hey, I want some gym, or no, let's say I want running shoes. Okay, I'm gonna start running. I probably should start running, but I'm like, hey, I want some running shoes. Okay, and I type in men's running shoes, and I go to this website, and the headline says best men's running shoes, most affordable, best newest men's running shoes, and I go awesome, and I click on it, and it brings me to a homepage where it's like, they just show like their hero image of some guy wearing shoes, and I'm like, okay, and I look, and it's like, oh, kids, women, men, and then I click on men. And it's like, do you want boots? Do you want gym shoes? Do you want hiking shoes? Do you want running shoes? And I go, okay. Right now, at this point, I'm already 3 clicks in, and I've already spent a whole minute on the website trying to figure it out. Those little things right there will cause friction. And when you're trying to sell to cold traffic, so high intent cold traffic, someone who doesn't know who you are, they're not familiar with your brand, they're into shopping, someone's looking for a solution. If they have to go through all this extra stuff and you're not able to give them what they want right away, that is another reason. And that was just basically my example of showing you on a longer, a bigger scale, I guess, something that's more easy to imagine in your head. This is also where conversion can come down to. So again, it's going to be friction, and it's going to be this right here. Okay, the next thing, and this is also going to come into this, right? These are the 2 most important metrics that are going to pretty much influence everything. Let's talk about another soft metric. Let's talk about CTR. This is your click-through rate right here. CTR percentage, okay? What percentage of people who see your ads are clicking on them? If you have one that is under 8% for a search campaign, you again have a traffic problem. A lot of people don't realize how big their traffic problem is. All these, things come together, right? But it's all about searching for bottlenecks. If your click-through rate is really high, your conversion rate is good, 9, 10, 11, 12%. Your click-through is 12 to 15%, but your cost per conversion is $480. And let's say that for your business, you're like, dude, this is not sustainable, right? I don't know what you sell. You could just be doing just new roof installs, and that could be really good. I don't know, right? Don't really work with a lot of roofers. And then for your business, right, you could be like, hey, John, $500 per lead is just, it's just not going to cut it, right? Understandable. Okay, sure. Depending on your business, that's totally understandable. That's a lot of money. So what is the problem here? It's likely going to be, I'm sorry, I've kind of moved on from CTR because I just explained what that is. But again, industry standards for search campaign, you're going to want that to be above 8%. But again, if all this checks out, you're like, John, dude, traffic is awesome. Conversion rate's 8%, like I said. Click-through rate is like 12%. Dude, cost per conversion is $500. What is the next thing you look at to figure out the problem? And that is going to be your cost per click. Okay. So if you are converting at a 10% rate, okay, conversion rate 10%, that's pretty decent. We'll take that. Okay. Let's say that's 10%. And your click-through rate is 12, 15%. Sure, that's fine. Right. But your cost per conversion, like let's say, is $1,000. And you're like, dude, all the metrics look good. That would mean that your cost per click is $100, right? So that's a problem. Okay. And of course, this goes down the line. I, started working with a client not long ago. He's a moving company in Florida, and we are doing every single metric looks super solid. And right at about beginning of month 2, I'm like, okay, cool. We have the traffic dialed in. We're getting results. Average cost per lead month 1 was like 200, 220. And for a moving company, for doing commercial and residential, they can charge pretty good, right? Like this is a white glove premium service. This is not a necessity. It's medium ticket. So it's like, okay, that's pretty expensive. Ideally, we want to get those leads down as much as we can. So what is the number one thing to look at? I looked at, okay, we had like a 12% conversion rate. I got 15 to 18% click-through rate. Cost per conversion was like, 200 to 240. It's like, okay, what is the thing that we can do here? What metric is sticking out like a sore thumb? Cost per click. Cost per click was $30. Okay. And you go, okay, damn, if you do the math, that makes perfect sense. If we're getting, X amount of conversion rate, the cost per click is this, like, okay, that's how much leads cost. Okay. So the next thing that you can look at, okay, and I'm bringing all this together, okay, because all these things work together. And this is like you're cracking the code here. Okay. You're supposed to analyze all your Google Ads metrics, cost per conversion, conversion rate, CTR, CPC. And then I'm going to bring it down to your competitive metrics. When you are making decisions, I'm just going to say compete. This is just going to be easier. And this looks like compete, but it's compete. Your competitive metrics is going to be your search impression share and your your click share percentage. Those are the best ones. I'm going to say search impression share percentage, and I'm going to say click share percentage. Okay. So how Google Ads works, right, is let's just say there are 1,000 searches for what your keywords are optimizing for every month. Okay. You have 1,000. Oh, geez. 1,000 searches. Okay. Right here. All 1,000. You've got you advertising here, competitor, 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 competitor. Right? There's only 1,000 searches a month. However many players there are in the game, how is everyone else's budget? How's everyone's ad rank? That determines basically how many clicks that you are eligible for with your exact setup, your exact budget, your exact everything, like I said. Okay. So what does this mean? Competitive metrics don't get looked at as much, or maybe they do, they just don't get talked about as much as I think that they should. And why is this important? Okay, because when you are working with a limited pool in a search campaign, which is, hey, how many searches are there this month? How many are we eligible for? That's what you get. But okay, if your CPC is 30 bucks, 25 bucks, 50 bucks, 80 bucks, 100 bucks, right? In your industry, regardless, right? If you're a law, if you're a plumber, those keywords can be really, really expensive, right? Depending on, again, all this stuff here is what comes into as well. This is part of dialing in that traffic, is making sure that you're not paying $80 per click on a keyword that's only converting at 10%. That'd be $800 per lead. Not good. Okay, but you look at your competitive metrics. Okay, so your bidding strategy, right? Let's say you're on maximize clicks. Still, you're thinking about going into maximizing conversions. That's going to help, but that's not going to reduce your CPC, increase your conversion rate on its own. That's just not what Google's going to do. Google's not going to be able to just improve those metrics for you and be like, hey, awesome, now we're all of a sudden crushing it, right? You have to take control over the account yourself. So if you look and you're like, hey, John, my search impression share is 25%. That was bad, 25. And you're like, hey, our click share is like 10%. Here's what this tells me right away. This is bad also. You guys get the point. What this tells me right now is that our cost per click, let's just realistically say it's like 35 bucks. We're not going to use $100 as an example. Let's use $35. Okay. This is the scenario. Okay. Let's say it right here. $500 cost per conversion. Conversion rates between 5%, 8%, 10%. Click-through rates between 8% to I don't know, 13%. Cost per click is 35 bucks. What do we do? Look at these metrics. What this means here, your search impression share at 25%, that means that out of all the searches that are triggering your keywords, in whatever time frame you're looking at, that means that out of those 1,000 searches for this example, right? We have the 1,000 here. That means that you showed up 25% of the time. Congratulations. Your impression share was 25%. You got visibility for 25% of this auction. So that is I'll write it down here. That is, let's see if we can move all this up. That is going to be, wow, that didn't grab. That's okay. Let's say, okay, now that's going to put us at 250 searches. Okay. So we were eligible for 250 impressions. Awesome. Okay, cool. Out of that click share, our click share percentage is 10%. Okay, nice. So out of all the available, searches, which is 1,000, we got 10% of the clicks. That's 100 clicks. Okay, cool. 100 clicks. Nice. Very cool. Out of all that, right? So that would determine here. I know these numbers don't add up, but I'm just doing this just for ease sake, right? Typically, that's a lot of these numbers are gonna kind of make sense because they all kind of work together. Long story short, what does this tell me right here? This tells me right now that if these numbers are all true, it tells me that we are competing in unnecessarily expensive auctions. Okay, so we have a lot more market share left. We can scale this vertically. We could just increase the budget. We could scale horizontally, and open up this number of searches by adding more keywords, and showing up and just being eligible for more searches in general. But what this tells me now is we need to take control of the auction itself, because right now we're just playing in an auction that Google wants us to play in. Okay. So to control your cost per click, what you need to do is you need to tell Google, hey, we're going to put a cost per click bid limit of, let's just cut it a little shy. We're going to do $27. Okay. So now what happens is Google is only, okay, so out of all your keywords, right? Let's just say for this, you're a plumber, because I know these keywords can be expensive. Plumber near me might be $100 or an $80 keyword, but are there any plumbers open near me right now? That might be a $20 keyword, $15 keyword, right? I don't know the numbers. Every Every keyword, every location is going to be different, but that's an example. Okay. I know that those two keywords very much drastically differ in price and cost per click, right? So what's happening right now is if you have both of those keywords live inside of your, ad groups in your campaign, and you're looking at these numbers, that means that you're just participating in every auction that you can. Okay. And that's what's causing this. I'm sure if you see this number here, some clicks are maybe 100, some clicks are $10, some clicks are 20. You might even have a rare occasion where there's a $300 click and it takes your budget for the next 2 days, right? But this cost per click is an average. Okay. So what's happening is when you have money and someone triggers a search, you're competing in it right now. Boom, you're in it, you're in it, you're in it. Oh, you won the bid? Awesome. Let's remove that budget. Google takes that. Thank you. Right? And then you move on. But when you set a cost per click bid limit that's a little bit aggressive, then this tells Google, hey, we only want to participate in auctions that we can win for no more than $27. Okay. So now what does this do? This affects these numbers, which is okay because there's so much room left. You're only even being shown for a fourth of the searches, and you're only getting 10% of the clicks in your local area for your particular keywords, etc. Right? So now this is a time where you can take control and tell Google, hey, here's what we want. And so now naturally, if you're already converting good with the traffic, your click-through rate, so your traffic is already good in general, your landing page experience is good, the transparency, the congruency, people are taking action. Now, setting this cost per click bid limit is how you can affect this, right? So immediately by moving this from the difference between moving a cost per click from $35 average to let's just say $25 average. I don't even know off the top of my head. I should probably know this, but I'm on camera right now, so I'm not going to be able to nail this off the bat, right? But that was a difference in, 22% right away, okay? So that would change this right away by 22%, assuming all these other metrics stay the same. So what is 22% of, $500 in terms of difference? That's already, a little over $100. That would bring conversion, let's just say, to 380. Wow, still pretty high, but still a massive difference. And now you reevaluate the metrics. You make sure your traffic is staying strong, and you look at these numbers here. Okay, and you're like, okay, now that you did that, your search impression share for that market that you're particularly competing in, that auction is now like 40%. That still shows there's a lot of room left. Then maybe you gradually bring it down, and now you get your cost per click bid limit down to $15, and now you're getting cost per lead for $75, and you go awesome. Okay, so sorry, it's Arizona here. When I get on these long videos and I start to ramble like this, my throat gets really dry. That's okay. So again, it just comes down to looking at all these metrics and how they come into play. You want to look for these sore thumbs. Okay. So now let's just say what's going to happen is you get these costs per conversion, you get this cost per lead down to 70, $80. Now what happens is you're going to want to scale the budget because, hey, this is working. Let's go ahead and get more, but you're going to be stuck because your cost per click at, $15, let's say, is tapping out your market. Google's saying, hey man, there's not much more we can do here. Now you have to expand, right? And as you scale, advertising naturally gets more expensive because, you're increasing your total addressable market. At scale, ads almost always, depreciate in terms of return on ad spend, and there are a lot of ways to combat this. Okay, so again, a lot of this is just trimming fat in every way. Okay, keywords trim, ad groups trim if they're expensive, they're costing you money. Whether you have to manage the cost per click, or even if cost per click is low and it's affordable and it's all working, these numbers are good, then set a target CPA. Right, that stuff helps too. Or set a target ROAS. Right, looking at these numbers is the only way you can decide on, okay, what's the problem here, okay? So now that you've done this, right, you're at this part, you're like, Johnny, awesome, man, this video has been super helpful. We got leads down to 70, $80, $60, $50, $40, whatever it is for your industry. You guys are doing good, but you want to scale, and now you have a problem. You're going to have to go up market again. So now that you've trimmed all the fat in your account, and you've pigeonholed it, and you're going like this, but you're going like this, you're doing good. Now you're going to have to open it back up, okay? So what are ways to potentially open back up to be able to scale and not get, not have the budget be throttled and being choked on by a target CPA that's too low or cost per click that's too low. But if we open it back up, it's just going to explode again. What's the best way to do that? There are a lot of ways to do that. And it's going to be basically coming down to just being as precise as you can. There are ways to have a campaign specifically for one location. Make a landing page for just that location. If that location is further away than normal, put an arrival guarantee. Right? Have a special process for that location, because when you open it, now you're going to be able to compete better in that market. Okay. Because no matter what, I don't care if you've got an unlimited budget, let's say you got a credit card with $1 trillion on it, okay? If your job here is these metrics, none of that really matters, right? What matters is controlling the metrics. And your cost per click, if you want to spend 10,000, 100,000, 50,000 bucks a month in a local market, you're going to run into this little matrix right here. This, cracking of the combination of, a lock, right? And it's just going to be looking at these again. Okay. So this is just the price, and everything else you have to be able to manipulate in order to do this. So to open it back up, to get better, to get a better cost per lead when you open up, and there's not much you can do about this because, hey, man, this is just an expensive area. This is just what they are. Then now you have to focus on stuff like this. Your cost per conversion is going to be the most expensive, or the most important thing you can do. And that's going to be, again, having tailored landing pages for each service and then refining those. Use something like Microsoft Clarity or Hotjar. Monitor the performance of those. You're right. You can literally get a library full of recordings and see, what people are doing on the page. Make tweaks, split test, make it so this converts higher. Again, if you're in a big radius and some of those areas getting clicks are 30 minutes away, people know that. That can also get people away because they go, oh, these guys are in town. We're out of town. Let's just find someone else. Have specific landing pages for specific locations and specific campaigns. So you go, hey, just nail it right away. Hey, we're this far away. We know you guys are here. We want to expand our reach, to your community and serve everyone in, the area as a whole. So we give a 20-minute arrival guarantee. If we're not there in 20 minutes upon the appointment being booked, then, you get 15% off because, that's what you want to do. Okay. That stuff works. Okay. Optimizing for conversion rate works. All of this other stuff works. Okay. So again, when it's coming down to Google Ads and you want to control your overall cost per conversion, I know I just kind of went down the rabbit hole of now what to do at scale. Maybe what to do at scale is for a different video because now my brain is turning with a million things to do. And I will save that for a next video. But for your budget, if you want to get your cost per conversion down as best as you can, and you want to take control of your Google Ad account, you need to be looking at these metrics and you need to play the game of what's sticking out like a sore thumb. And you need to figure out how you're going to address it. And it's going to be by taking control of either and a combination of your traffic, which is going to be your search terms, your keywords, your negative keywords, your keyword match types. That's going to, reinforce the actual traffic itself. Your conversion rate, which I talked about what we can do there, right? So I'll cross these out, right? So conversion rate, we talked about the landing page experience, the call to actions, your offer, how fast your page loads, how relevant it is, how much friction there is. If you get people right to where they want, or if they clicked a bunch of places, that all affects conversion rate. Next, click-through rate, again, is going to be your traffic, your headlines, your copy, making sure all that is good. Next, cost per click is going to be basically your ad relevancy, your keyword quality score, your industry, and again, your match types and your keywords, as well as just, pretty much everything that you've chosen for your keywords and how you structured that. And then again, your search impression share is going to be the market that you're playing in, how many people are in the market, how far your budget's getting you, and what piece of that pie that right now you're eligible for getting. And then again, all this comes into play. When you move one of these, they all change. When you move one, another one, everything else changes. So this is the code of Google Ads that you're cracking, is this big save combination right here. So I hope this helped. I hope I was able to give you guys a good example in how to take control of your Google Ads account. Again, my name is John Eberhard. I've worked with almost 150 brands now at this point. I've managed over $20 million in ad spend. My favorite type of businesses are local home service businesses. If you watch this, it makes sense. If you're overwhelmed, I would love to run your Google Ads for you. So if you are a local business doing at least over $1 million a year, go to the contact form using the first link in the description of this video. Fill out my form. I preach speedily to everyone, so I am also speedy quick to my leads. So if I'm not sleeping, if I'm not making a YouTube video like this, I will call you within minutes because I live on my phone and do business on my phone, just like I'm sure you do. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.